Hey guys, it's Emily from Bold and Badass Fitness, and today I wanted to do a video for you about body positivity. I want to warn you ahead of time, this video might be controversial. I realize that not everyone loves the body positivity movement or the fat acceptance movement, but I want to talk to you a little bit about why I don't think that should be controversial, tell you about a book I read recently, and then talk to you about how body positivity looks in a gym setting, which is where I live, more or less, in a gym setting. So, first off, this book that I just finished, this book is called I Do It With the Lights On, and is written by Whitney Way Thor. She has a TV show called My Big Fat Fabulous Life, something like that. I have not seen her TV show. It's a reality TV show. If you've seen it and it's great or it sucks, I don't know, I don't care, but post below if you have comments on that. She's also the star of a YouTube video called A Fat Girl Dancing, which went viral a few years ago. But I read the book because it details her life, her struggle with PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and how she came to love and accept her own body. And I think it's a really moving story. It's so well written. It's funny. She is witty as fuck. Oh, by the way, this video includes swearing. She's witty as fuck. And I just wanted to kind of point out a few things I liked about the book. First off, she talks about her childhood and how her parents were very policing of her body, and just in like a really subtle way, right? One of the first stories she tells is about being a young child and being in a grocery aisle with her mom. And she points to a gallon of chocolate milk and asks if they can buy it, and her mom tells her that it's not chocolate milk, that it's just regular milk in a dark container. And she goes on to say that this is because a doctor has told her mom that she's overweight. Technically, her BMI was like 1 point above where it was supposed to be. I mean, kids' weight fluctuates. So for whatever reason, a doctor told her mom to police her intake of chocolate milk and ice cream, and it really had an impact on her. And she kind of talks about how those sort of behaviors come up over and over again through the book, where her parents, her father especially, will say to her, you know, I think you'd be happier if you just lost a few pounds. And what's really compelling about this story is I think that's relatable for a lot of people, that either their family or their friends and loved ones have, in really small, subtle ways, suggested that maybe they'd just be happier if they lost weight, which, while it may be true for the person speaking, isn't necessarily true for the person hearing it, although when you hear something from enough people, it can start to feel true. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about this book, is just the way in which her life, oh, and here's another thing, right? She wasn't overweight when she was younger, and so I think she didn't develop PCOS, or didn't manifest until she was entering college. The way in which she was really aggressively critical of her body, even before she had gained a lot of weight and become not socially acceptable, in other people's eyes. And so she talks a lot about gaining that weight. She gained so much weight so quickly in her first semester of college. She gained, I think it was like 40 or 50 pounds. She said she gained weight so quickly that she started bumping into objects all the time, that she didn't even have the proprioception to know where her body was in space, that she wasn't used to living in that body. And I think, for me, I didn't know that much about PCOS before I read this, so that was really, learning more about the disease was really enlightening. Apparently it affects 10% of American women, so that's actually a fairly significant number. Only one of the symptoms of PCOS is rapid weight gain. But in any case, the book goes on to talk about how she started the no body shame movement. It talks a lot about how people on the street were aggressively critical of her weight when she lived abroad, for instance, or even in America, how people would just make constant comments to her. And this brought up a lot of things for me that I think really could play out in a gym setting. For instance, that people would always tell her that she was promoting obesity, just by existing, that she was promoting obesity, or that she needed to lose weight to be healthier. And one of the things she mentions in the book, and this is true, is that you can't necessarily tell how healthy someone is by how heavy they are. And I think that's a really radical thought, actually. That's a really radical thing that we don't talk about enough, which is that people sort of implicitly, tacitly assume that people who are overweight have all these extra risk factors for disease, and that people who are skinny are somehow okay, that they're healthy. And it's very, very possible to be lean or skinny or whatever, thin or whatever you want to call it, and still be sick in any number of ways, or still be at risk in any number of ways. And I think that judgment is one of those subtly encoded ways that we suggest, that we express that it's not actually health that the person speaking is concerned about, but their real concern is something more of almost a moral valence, right? That they just believe it is somehow wrong or gross to be overweight. She talks a lot about those assumptions in the book. So anyways, go ahead and read that. I think that book is awesome. One of the things I wanted to draw out of that, though, is that the body positivity movement is not just for people who are overweight, for fat people. I'm saying the word fat because fat is a descriptor, and it's okay to say the word fat. I think we need to stop acting like fat is a bad word. Body positivity is not just for big girls. Body positivity is for people of every size, by the way. It's also for men and for women. It's for people who are cis, it's for people who are trans, it's for people who are young and old. Though, obviously, the people who are most marginalized should be the center of the movement. I think it's really worth noting that in much the same way the early chapters of the book detail how even as a younger, thinner woman, she was hypercritical, that fat shame, that lack of body acceptance we have in our culture, that cultural ideal that is white and thin and of a certain height and of a certain complexion, all these other things, that ideal doesn't help anybody because almost nobody is going to fit exactly into it. And so a lot of people all over the spectrum are going to find themselves really unhappy and hating themselves if we subscribe to that ideal. So that's a big part of why I support the body positivity movement. It's a big part of why I believe that Bold and Badass is a body positive gym. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about how that plays out for us. So obviously, like I said, this issue of how being healthy does not 100% map onto how big or small you are is part of it, and I subscribe to that really wholeheartedly. Another element of how it looks in the gym is that we don't necessarily ask people to conform to a beauty standard, and that may sound like an obvious thing, but in the personal training industry, it's not at all uncommon for trainers to take a look at someone, just look at them walking in the door and say, oh, you're here for fat loss, or you could lose a few pounds and then you'd be happier. I think that a lot of times that plays out. And so one of the ways that I want to deal with that as a trainer, besides just not asking people to lose weight, besides not telling people they should lose weight, is in starting to sort of distance the moral issue from all the things that come with weight loss. So we can still do weight loss. I still have a number of weight loss clients who are all over the spectrum in terms of what they look like when they come in and where they want to be when they're farther along in their training journey. But I think distancing weight loss from shame, distancing weight loss from moral validation or from societal acceptance or from self-hatred as a motivating factor is really important. And you'll see this a lot in like fitspiration, like motivational fitness crap on Pinterest or Instagram, is people saying, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels and stuff like that, which sort of suggests that if only you were stronger, if only you had more willpower, you could be happy enough, you could be skinny enough to be happy. And I think that is a really toxic, poisonous piece of gym culture that we need to get rid of. One way that I help people distance body shame from the desire to lose weight, if they do truly desire to lose weight, is by making measurements, by making things like taking weights, making things like taking circumferences or body fat percentage, making things like that objective. They have no connotation. We're just taking data. It doesn't mean anything about you if the number goes up, if the number goes down. Practicing seeing those numbers and not getting hooked on seeing the numbers go down or not getting hooked on seeing them go up, whatever your goal is. I think that's really powerful. It's there's something therapeutic about pursuing weight loss without those things. Another thing that I have some of my clients do is if they're taking a food journal anyways, if they're recording their food, and even for some people who are not, at the same time as they're writing down what they eat in the day, I also ask them to write down one thing about their body that they're grateful for, or one thing about their body that they like. And that could be something like, I love my curly hair, I love my strong shoulders, I love that I could deadlift X number of pounds, or whatever, right? But I think this habit is really critical because it's about developing a practice of self-love while you're on the journey to wherever it is you want to go. Obviously, if you don't love yourself where you're at right now, it doesn't really matter where you get to, right? And I think that's this idea that a lot of people have, that if only I lost 10 pounds, then I would feel good about myself, but I'm not allowed to feel good about myself until the body, until the belly is gone or something like that, right? And that line of reasoning doesn't really hold up. I think most people who have that thought will find that when they lose 10 pounds, they just want to lose one more. They just wish the fat here were gone, or they just wish the fat here were gone, or whatever, right? And so that can make success this thing that lives permanently in the future. That can make happiness and self-love this thing that is always just a little farther away. So starting to cultivate this practice of finding things to love about yourself as you are at the same time as you go somewhere else, that I think has real power. So those are just a few of my ideas about how body positivity can manifest in a gym setting. There's a lot of other ways that this might play out in terms of sort of dismantling the body dysmorphia that a lot of people, that virtually all of us come with to some degree. But I'd love to hear your guys' ideas. I'd love to hear if there anything out there that's worked for you, how you think this might go better. I'm open to changing things. But and then the last thing is, if you want to see what this looks like for yourself, if you want to come experience the body positive gym experience, definitely give me drop me a message or shoot me a call, and we'll set that up for you. So thank you guys so much. Oh, I see that there's a question. Let's see, Kimberly asked, would you agree, though, that waist size is a key factor in health-related issues? Okay, let's address that before I drop this then. Waist size is supposedly a factor in health-related issues. I think it's the waist-hip ratio. We were talking about this the other day. It's a waist-hip ratio of 0.7, I think, suggests optimum health. And that may or may not be true. I certainly have heard that before, but I think one of the things we have to think about with that is, does everyone have to be in optimal health all the time? I'm a health professional. I work in fitness, and I definitely want people to, lift weights and feel great and all that, but it's not for me to tell someone in what way they should be healthy. I mean, yeah, maybe a certain waist size is correlated to health-related issues, so is taking fish oil, but not everyone does that, and I don't think that a person is a bad person if they don't, take fish oil or a multivitamin in the morning. And so I think that's the real thing that I'm talking about when we talk about those risk factors is, one, not all of those are true, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not the person to make, or a researcher or any of that, I'm not the person to make the ultimate final word on those things. But what I do think about it is that it's worth considering that it's not up to me to determine in what way someone else should be healthy. It's my job to help them be healthy in whatever way they want to be. So take that with a grain of salt. As always, check back for more of these videos. I post them here on Facebook as well as on YouTube or on the website. Hope you all have enjoyed this video. I'd love to see more comments. Thank you guys. Goodbye.